Hello. So I decided to make a video about, as promised, about my DNA results. I had my Ancestry DNA results come in. First of all, I want to just clarify that this has become really popular for many years now, because the first DNA test I did to figure out what my ancestry was about 5 years ago, and I had it done through Family Tree DNA, and they work in conjunction with National Geographic. They're actually very good. This time I opted to do it differently. If you want to get your ancestry results, for your mom and your dad, basically what they passed on to you, both your mom and your dad, I would highly suggest that you have not the ancestry test, or the DNA test rather, done on yourself by providing a saliva sample of your own, but I would highly suggest, if it's possible, to have your mom and your dad each have a kit and provide their saliva sample, because then you're going to get a more complete kind of look at what your father's ancestry looks like and what your mother's ancestry looks like. If you do it on yourself, you will only see what your mom and dad passed on to you. And you will also notice that if you were to do a DNA test and your brother or your sister were to do a DNA test, of course from the same parents, you're going to see that there's going to be differences. Your brother may have slightly more of a certain type of ethnicity than you. So the numbers will fluctuate and the percentages will fluctuate. Doesn't mean that it's not the same parents. It is the same parents. Well, I'm not going to go there. I mean, if you have Chinese coming out of nowhere and everybody else is Chinese, then you should probably call the local Chinese store and figure it out. But no. But really, if you do a DNA test on both your parents, then it is much more complete. So Family Tree DNA, I did that 5 years ago. My brother provided the sample, because if you were to do it on yourself as a female, you're not going to get your dad's haplogroup, which is the migration group, basically, that he belongs to on this planet Earth. So since the Y chromosome is only passed on to boys, hence why they're XY and we're XX, we're not going to get their haplogroup. Doesn't mean we don't get our dad's DNA. We do. But we can't, through our DNA as females, they can't figure out what our dad's haplogroup is. So it is advisable, if you can, to have your both parents take it instead of your brother or your sister or something like that. That way you can get a more complete look at basically what you're working with, what your parents are working with before they made you. So so let's get to the DNA test. So I ordered 2 kits. One was for my mom, one for my dad, and I did it through 2 different companies this time, not Family Tree DNA. Not because I didn't like Family Tree DNA, they're pretty good, but I found that it's more expensive if you want more in-depth kind of results and more specific results. You need to purchase these tests that will go further and further and check your ancestry really well. And so I think that maybe they should make it easier, more economically accessible for people, because if not, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to get these tests done and have a complete picture. Okay, one thing, I used 2 different companies that I had never used before. The companies I used this time were Ancestry DNA, which you see on TV all the time, and my dad. I had my dad do it through Ancestry DNA, and I had my mom sample from 23andme. Which one is better? I would say that not, because I was really confused at the beginning about whether to just do it both through one company or do them from different companies. And I'm glad I did it this way because I can give you more of an idea of what you may want to go for. If I were to choose between them, it would be pretty hard because they both offer something unique. For example, I don't know how much you care, but the 23andMe, I found, has the advantage that it's just the way it's organized is very nice. Very easy to read and determine, what you are, and they have the whole thing where they tell you how much percentage of a Neanderthal you are, which of course is very important information. We must know how much of a caveman we are. So it has that feature. But one thing I didn't like about 23andMe is the fact that they have, when they give you your results, they give you your results in 3 levels. Speculative, which I think it's about a 50-something% chance that that's your ancestry. Standard, which is about 75% that the results are your ancestry. And then conservative, which is 90% chance that that's your ancestry. So for the common person, that would be really confusing. If you were to look at your speculative and your conservative, sometimes they'll be drastically different. And then they'll, like, for example, you can be, let's say, 70% European on the speculative, but then if you check the conservative, it may drop down to 30%. And then you'll have this group at the bottom where it says unassigned. Basically, we can't assign it to any ethnicity. So it's like, oh, well, thanks. That helps. So which one do I go by? So I had to do some research and check what other people were saying, and they basically concluded that you have to go with the speculative. You should look at all of them, but go with the speculative, which is pretty good. They're pretty accurate, I think. And with regards to Ancestry, so I do like 23andMe. 23andMe is pretty good. With regards to Ancestry, I would say it has an advantage in that you don't get those 3 levels where you have to be wondering, well, which one should I go by? Should I go by conservative, standard, or speculative? It doesn't have that kind of confusion going on. It just gives it what it is, and that's it. It's easier to come to a conclusion instead of just wondering, having to switch back and forth and see, well, let me do math here and figure out, well, what percentage am I of this, really? So it's interesting. Both of them have really good features. They're different. The Ancestry doesn't have the whole Neanderthal thing that I've seen, that they don't have. I don't care how much of a Neanderthal my parents are. I really don't care about that. But you do have a really good feature about how both of them actually link you to people in their database that match you. So they will match you with a relative. And that's really cool because you may meet people in your family you've never met before, and they get really close. For my mom's results, someone came out as her nephew. So we're in the process of finding out who that person is. Because obviously they're my cousin, and I have no idea who it is. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so before I continue rambling, if you were to make a decision on which one to go with, if I had to choose, like if they point a gun to my head, they say choose a test, I would say I would choose Ancestry DNA. And that's it. Because of the price, they're pretty much the same price, but sometimes, like for example, regularly the kits each are $99 for 23andMe and for Ancestry DNA. However, if you go on your computer and you search, you will find the kit from Ancestry DNA on their website for $79. So they do put it on sale, and I did get it on sale. So not because of the price, but if they were both to be at $99, I would still probably choose Ancestry DNA. But they're both really good. So one thing I want to say is, as you already know, my parents are both from the Dominican Republic. That's no mystery. I've said it a million times. They're both 100% Dominican. I'm 100% Dominican from both sides. Their parents are Dominican. So it's Dominican, Dominican, Dominican. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my results with you. I was going to share it on my computer, which is why I have it right here behind me. But I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it very well. So I'm going to try to show you somewhat of what they look like when they break it down to give you the results. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can actually see this, but this is what you're basically looking at when you get your results. This is my mom. I had this done through 23andme. Okay, as you can see, it's 23andme. And these are her results. So, of course, this is her paternal and her maternal line, all jumbled up, put together. So my mom is 68.6% European, 23.7 being from Iberian Peninsula, which would be, the Iberian Peninsula is Spain and Portugal together. But just by history, you can conclude really that it would be, of course, Spain, although you never know. 8.6 Italian, 0.6% Balkan, and then the rest, which is 26.4, it's broadly ancestry that you find in Southern Europe. So is a whole medley there. So we can pretty much just conclude that the rest is like Southern Europe. There is some British and Irish, which is 0.4%, 2.0% broadly European, which means you can find them outside of Ireland and Great Britain. 0.2% Ashkenazi Jew, and 6.8% broadly European in general. But in conclusion, it's basically 68.6, which is the majority of my mom's DNA. Okay, and then we have 19.8% Sub-Saharan African. So I have 17.7% West African, 0.7% Central and South African, and 1.5% broadly Sub-Saharan African. So my mom is, if you add her paternal and her maternal side ancestry, you're going to find that it will equal 19.8% Sub-Saharan African. Now she is also 6.9% East Asian and Native American. The 5.2% Native American represents basically the Taino population that was depleted by the Spaniards, but of course it's in our blood still. So 5.2% Taina, 0.2% broadly East Asian, 0.1% Southeast Asian, and then 1.4% broadly East Asian and Native American. Okay, and then last but not least, my mom is 2.4% Middle Eastern and North African. As you know, during Spain was ruled for a really long time, from 711 AD to 1492, by the Moors, by the Arabs and Berbers that invaded Spain. So the whole region of the south was ruled by North African Berbers and Arabs. So my mom comes up with 2.1% North African and 0.3% broadly Middle Eastern and North African. So that equals my mom. Then 2.3 says unassigned, which means it wasn't really clear where that 2.3 was from. But if we look at the DNA in general, we can really conclude that the highest groups are European, of course, is almost 70%. And then 19.8 being Sub-Saharan African, and then 6.9% being Native American or East Asian. So that is my mom, and let's go ahead and check out my dad's results. So when you get your results on Ancestry, they look like this. All right, and this is for my dad. So this is Ancestry DNA. Hello. And you're gonna get your results in a breakdown like this. You're going to see a pretty map here, and then you're going to see your percentages on the side. So let's look at my dad's DNA. My dad is 27%, and I'm sorry if this sucks. I know this is not which is probably not the best way to record this. But my dad is 27% African, from what was passed down to him from mom and dad. I like that they tell you where in Africa, what part. This 8% Mali, 4% Africa North. Now, Africa North, of course, when you click on it, it's good because it tells you you want to get an idea of, what countries you could be looking at. Of course, you get Algeria, Libya, Morocco, Western Sahara, and things like that. So, I already explained that Spain was ruled by Arabs, so it's not a surprise. So we have Africa North, we have Mali, which has very interesting history, and then we have trace regions, which means, and it actually explains if you don't understand what a trace region is. These are regions where you seem to have just a trace amount of genetic ethnicity. There is only a small amount of evidence supporting the regions as part of your genetic ethnicity. Because both the estimated amount and the range of the estimate are small, it is possible that these regions appear by chance and are not actually part of your genetic ethnicity. So 15% trace regions. And what are those trace regions? Well, they come out when you click on that. And I don't know if you can see it, but Senegal, 4%, Cameroon or Congo, 4%, Africa, Southeastern Bantu, 4%, Benin or Togo, 2%, Africa, South Central hunter-gatherers, less than 1%. Therefore, these are traces, but they're not very, you can't really confirm really that they are from those places. But still interesting to look at. Then, of course, my dad is Taino, 7%. So, as you can see right there, 7% Taino, Native American. A little higher than my mom. Not even, can't even consider Asia, because Asia is like -1, not even -1, it's like less than 1%. So it doesn't really count. Then the majority is, of course, European, 58%. Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain, Portugal, like I said, 30%. He has 11% DNA from Western Europe. Italy and Greece basically make up 7% of his DNA. And if we look at the trace regions, he has 4% European Jewish, 3% Irish, 2% European, East European, which of course Romania, countries like that. Great Britain is less than 1%, and Scandinavia, of course, less than 1%. And my dad has 7% Middle East. So besides having the North African, which are normally, they tend to be Arabs or Berbers, he also has a separate DNA from the Middle East. So that's what this looks like. So it's pretty interesting. Okay. Some of the major groups for my dad are 58% European, followed by 27% African. A lot of these trace regions can't be confirmed, which sucks, but I would like it. I mean, either or, it doesn't matter really. It's there somehow, or the traces were found somehow. It's interesting. So what I was most excited about was the Native American in both, because this is supposedly people that were wiped out, and yet we carry the Taino blood in our DNA. There's my mom, 5.2. My dad's 7%, so he's slightly higher. So that's what these look like. So overall, what would I recommend? Just to close off this video, I would recommend, if you're going to do the test from the companies that I've tried, try any one you want, really. These are just my suggestions. I would just go with Ancestry DNA. Another thing, buy 2 kits, look up for the sale, $79 sale, and give one to your mom and give one to your dad. If your dad for some reason is deceased, give one to your If you has an uncle, if you have an uncle from his side, so if he has a brother, you can ask him to do it. You could also get your brother to do it if it's from the same dad. So you can do those things. It's more advisable though to try and get it from someone that's like a brother of your dad or something like that. Or your grandfather. What else can I tell you? Okay. So do 2 separate tests. Then you could do the test on yourself to see what you got from both of them. But if you want to see a more complete picture, definitely do it on both of your parents. And nothing, enjoy the results. It's really interesting to do that and to know really what's in your ancestry. As you can see, we are a mix of everything. So even though I am Dominican, I have a mix of so many things. I have a mix of Middle Eastern, Native American, African, European, even Asian. So I have a mix of everything. And it's just good to know all these things. It's interesting. Let me see if I would suggest anything else. I mean, that's what I would go for. I mean, I'm not saying 23andme is not any good. It is good. But the only thing that kind of gets me is the whole speculative versus conservative. It's a little confusing for people. But it's still interesting. You just go by the speculative. Because it seems to make the most sense when you look at all 3. And nothing, enjoy your DNA tests and discoveries of your ancestors. And that's it. All right, have a good day.